She just wanted to catch one fish, that's all. One tiny fish to honor her mother's last memory. But instead, my 14-year-old daughter was handed a $600 fine by a woman in designer sunglasses who called us a disturbance. If you have ever been fined by an HOA for something as innocent as being human, stay right here, because what I did next not only shut them down, it changed this entire community forever. My name is Adrian West, and I never planned on becoming an enemy of my neighborhood. I did not move to Lakeshore Glade to start a war. I moved there to help my daughter breathe again. We had just lost her mother, my wife of 17 years, to cancer, the kind that creeps in quietly and then steals everything all at once. After months of hospital visits, goodbyes we were not ready for, and the kind of silence that screams when you wake up alone, I knew we needed something else, a reset, a place with trees, with wind, with water. That was Rachel's favorite thing, water. She used to say, "When you're near water, the world feels like it's still listening." So I found a house that backed to a sparkling lake. 6 acres of gentle waves, surrounded by families who waved from their driveways. The listings called it a peaceful paradise, and after everything we'd been through, I wanted to believe it. The realtor mentioned there was a homeowners association, of course. She smiled and called it light touch, just basic upkeep. She did not mention the real president of this neighborhood, or how she enforced her rule like a monarch with a clipboard. But that Saturday morning, when I took Lily down to the lake to finally fish for the first time since her mom passed, we found out exactly what kind of place we had moved into. We got to the dock just after 7:30 in the morning. Lily was quiet, but not sad, just still. She was holding her mother's old tackle box, the one with faded stickers and cracked corners. I let her set up the rods while I sat back on the bench and listened to the water gently tapping against the wood, and for a few minutes, it felt like peace. Then Lily caught her first bluegill. I had not seen her smile like that in months. She giggled, actually giggled while trying to get the hook out, just like Rachel used to do. That one little moment felt like a light had cracked open inside her. That is when we heard the heels. Not footsteps, heels. Sharp, intentional, clicking against the concrete as if each step had a purpose. We turned and saw her. Mid-50s, immaculate white tennis outfit, blonde bob cut, that could slice glass, sunglasses that probably cost more than our fishing poles, and an expression that looked like she had just stepped in something foul. She stopped 5 feet from the dock, tapped on her iPad, and said in a voice so crisp it could shatter a mirror, "Excuse me, what exactly do you think you're doing?" Stood up calm and polite. "Just fishing with my daughter," I said, offering a smile. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she tapped faster. "Fishing is not permitted on Lakeshore Glade property. You are in direct violation of HOA bylaw 7.4 subsection B. That comes with a fine of $600. Are you Mr. West?" I blinked. "Wait, what?" "I'm Belinda Cross, HOA president," she said, as if that should mean something to me. "We moved in last month," I explained gently. "Our realtor told us fishing was allowed." Belinda's lips curled slightly. "The board passed a bylaw amendment 2 weeks ago. You should have received an email." I did not get anything. "Check your spam folder," she snapped, then turned her tablet so I could see the digital citation. Already issued. "You're welcome to appeal, if you enjoy wasting your time." Lily's smile had vanished. Her hands trembled as she reeled in the line. I glanced down and saw her lip quiver. This was not about fish. Not for her. Not for me. I stepped between Belinda and Lily, lowering my voice. "Look, we just lost her mother. This lake is the one place she feels close to her again." Belinda raised an eyebrow. "That's unfortunate, but personal tragedy does not exempt anyone from following the rules." She looked directly at Lily, then back to me. "Perhaps this is not the right kind of community for your family, Mr. West." And that was it. She turned and walked away, without another word. I watched her heels vanish down the path like the door closing on a bad memory. Lily sat down, silent. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Why was she so mean, Dad? I didn't do anything wrong. I knelt beside her, swallowed the fire building in my throat. No, baby, I whispered. You did everything right. She just forgot what this place is supposed to be. But I had not forgotten, and I was about to remind her, in the one language people like her understand: power. We walked back to the house in silence. Lily's fishing rod dragged lightly across the sidewalk. When we got inside, she went straight to her room and shut the door without a word. I opened my laptop. At first, I searched for the bylaw amendment Belinda claimed had passed. I checked every folder: inbox, spam, promotions, even trash. Nothing. No warning, no email, no notice. Then I opened the HOA website. Still nothing posted. I called the management office. The receptionist cheerfully told me that, per policy, all updates are emailed by the board president. That board president being Belinda Cross. And that's when something hit me. Something small, but sharp. The night before, I remembered seeing lights down by the lake, music, laughter, a gathering. It had to be one of those exclusive HOA parties the neighborhood gossip had mentioned. So I checked social media. It took 2 clicks to find her Instagram, public account. Big mistake. There she was, Belinda Cross, posing with her real estate friends on the very dock she had fined me on. Wine glasses in hand. No fishing rods, sure, but plenty of prohibited items. Food trays, amplified speakers, even a glass bottle balanced dangerously near the edge. So much for safety and environmental concerns. Hashtags like NAR Lakeside Vibes and Private Party filled the captions. Another post from 3 weeks ago showed a full-on lakeside wine tasting with banners and catered food. And in the background, behind the designer smiles and manicured hands, there it was, a child holding a small fishing pole next to Belinda. So it wasn't just hypocrisy. It was control. Selective control. I zoomed in on the date. That event happened after the supposed fishing ban was passed, and if she could host private parties here, but ban a grieving father and daughter from quietly fishing, what else was she doing with her authority? That night, as I sat alone by the back window watching the lake shimmer under the streetlights, a question echoed in my mind. Who actually owns the lake? Because if it wasn't the HOA, maybe, just maybe, there was a way to flip the entire game on its head, and if there was, I would find it. The next morning I went for a walk. Not the usual kind. This one had purpose. I strolled along the sidewalks of Lakeshore Glade like a man looking for peace, but watching closely for something else. About halfway through my loop I saw him, an older man with a slow gait and a gentle golden retriever at his side. He wore a faded baseball cap, glasses, and a worn navy sweater, the kind of man people underestimate. That was his mistake. We exchanged nods. Then I asked casually, "You've lived here long?" He gave a quiet chuckle. Long enough to know what they don't put in the brochure. His name was Henry Ralston, a retired property attorney who had lived in the neighborhood for over 2 decades, and once I mentioned Belinda Cross, his smile disappeared. "Oh, her," he said, his voice tightening. "You just got your first taste. She's been pulling this HOA scam for years. Selective rules, targeted violations, and just enough intimidation to keep people quiet." I told him about the fishing fine, the mysterious bylaw, and the lack of communication. He didn't even look surprised. "She's counting on people being too polite or too afraid to question her," he said. "But you're new. She hasn't broken you in yet." We ended up talking over coffee that afternoon in Henry's living room, surrounded by dusty law books and a half-assembled jigsaw puzzle on the table. He pulled out a thin file folder. "You asked who owns the lake," he said, flipping it open. "It isn't the HOA." I leaned forward. "Legally," he continued, "the lake belongs to Briar Point Development Corp., the original developers of this community. The HOA doesn't own the land, it leases it. And that lease?" He tapped a document with a yellow highlight. "It expires in 23 days. I stared at the page, heart pounding. If that lease isn't renewed, he said, ownership reverts back to Briar Point, or they can sell the land to whoever they want, including you. He sat back, letting it sink in. She's betting no one knows this. She's planning something big, and if she gets her hands on the deed before anyone notices, she'll rewrite this neighborhood around her name. I looked out Henry's window at the calm water glistening behind the homes. I came here to heal, I said quietly. But if she wants a war over that lake, I'll give her one she'll never forget. I had come here looking for peace. What I found was a neighborhood under quiet siege. Over the next few days, Henry introduced me to others, people with stories like mine but worse. A retired school principal who had been fined for unauthorized flowers. A single mother who was written up for having a wheelchair ramp without prior approval. A veteran who had been denied a patio renovation because it did not fit the aesthetic, and none of it was random. Belinda's pattern was clear. She wielded the HOA like a weapon. Fines were not for order, they were for pressure, and pressure led to panic. Panic led to sales. And she had real estate companies waiting in the shadows. Henry showed me public records, property after property bought by shell companies. Clear Bay Partners, Crossline Holdings, Riverside Estates, LLC, all different names, all traceable back to Belinda Cross. Here's how it worked. She targeted homeowners with bogus violations, drove down their property value through compliance issues, then swooped in and bought the homes through cutouts, renovated, relisted, and flipped them for double, sometimes triple. And the lake? That was her endgame. With the lease expiring in 23 days, she had already approached the developers trying to buy the lake herself. Not for the community, for her company. She wanted to build luxury homes around it and cut off access to everyone else. That is why she banned fishing. That is why she enforced rules unevenly. It was not about the environment. It was about control, profit, power. We had to act. Henry and I formed a private messaging group, the Glade Guardians. At first, it was just a few of us, quiet messages, quick meetings in backyards and cafes, but word spread fast. Every absurd violation Belinda issued only added more people to the group. Every email she sent, every fine she pushed, it fueled us. Within 2 weeks, we had members from over 30 households, and we were done being quiet. We didn't want revenge. We wanted change. But first, we needed to make sure she never got that lake, and I knew exactly how to do it. The moment I saw the lease expiration date, I knew I had less than 3 weeks to change everything. But I also knew this. If Belinda even suspected what I was planning, she would find a way to crush it. She had the mayor in her pocket, the zoning board, even the building inspector. So my next move had to be quiet. First, I created a company, Westland Holdings LLC, registered to a P.O. box in a neighboring city. No connection to my name, address, or anything in Lakeshore Glade. Then, through a third-party agent, I reached out to Briar Point Development, the original owners of the lake. Their response? We're considering an offer already from Ms. Cross. She's been persistent. That was expected. But what they said next, that changed everything. Truthfully, we're in financial distress. If someone can beat her offer and close fast, we're listening. That was all I needed. I offered $400,000 in cash with 7-day closing. No financing delays, no inspections, just clean money and quiet signatures. 2 days later, I had a signed agreement in hand, pending final transfer of title. Belinda had no clue. While she was busy hosting wine mixers and plotting her future lakefront empire, I was positioning to take the ground out from under her feet. And still, I played it calm. I waved at her when we passed on the sidewalk, smiled at the HOA flyers she slid into my mailbox. Even nodded politely when she fined me for having my daughter's bicycle parked too close to the garage door. She thought she was winning. She thought we were retreating. She thought wrong. Behind the scenes, the Glade Guardians were growing stronger. Henry was gathering signatures to demand a financial audit of the HOA. A neighbor named Elena, who worked for City Hall, quietly fed us internal documents. And another woman, Jasmine, found emails proving Belinda had coordinated selective enforcement on minority homeowners. Our file of evidence was growing fast, and the closer we got to the lake's transfer date, the more Belinda smiled. She had no idea. She thought she was buying a lake. But I was already holding the deed. Belinda had no idea the trap was already closed. She was too busy preparing her biggest spectacle yet, a community celebration at the lake, exclusive to longtime residents. Catered food, champagne, speeches. The HOA newsletter called it a tribute to our shared values, but everyone knew what it really was. A victory party. Belinda was about to publicly unveil her development plans, renderings of a members-only lakeside lounge, eco-renovations that conveniently erased fishing spots and future homes along the bank, all orchestrated by her own real estate company. She stood by the lake in a white blazer and pearls, holding a microphone like she was about to launch a campaign. But the lake was not hers anymore. I waited until everyone had gathered, until the slideshow was mid-presentation, until she said the words, "I am proud to lead this new era for Lakeshore Glade." Then I stepped forward. Not alone. I had Henry beside me, Elena, Jasmine, and an off-duty police officer who knew what was coming. I held up a crisp folder, took the mic gently from her hand. "Good afternoon," I said calmly. "Before we celebrate anything today, there's something the community needs to know." She blinked, confused. I unfolded the deed and turned to the crowd. Effective as of this week, this lake, and all surrounding property within 10 feet, is no longer under the jurisdiction of the HOA, gasps, murmurs. I continued. Ownership was transferred to a private buyer under legal agreement with Briar Point Development. That buyer is me. Silence. Then confusion. Then chaos. Belinda turned white. "That's not possible. The board—" "There is no board for the lake," I said. "There's an owner, and that owner is no longer interested in HOA involvement." I paused. "Effective immediately. This event is unauthorized. I'll ask everyone to gather your things and vacate the property, or Officer Daniels here will begin issuing trespass warnings." Some people laughed nervously, thinking it was a prank. Then Officer Daniels stepped forward. Serious, calm, official. People began packing up. Belinda grabbed my arm, furious. "You can't do this." "Oh, I can," I said softly. "You might want to check Section 4 of your lease agreement, the one that expired last week." Her face broke. Anger, disbelief, fear, all colliding behind those expensive sunglasses. "This is illegal. The HOA will fight this." "Feel free." I nodded. "But unlike your bylaw amendments, my ownership holds up in court." The party disbanded in under 15 minutes. The renderings were left on the grass, champagne flutes abandoned on tables, and as Belinda stormed off in silence, the lake finally looked peaceful again. This time, it belonged to someone who remembered what it was really for. The next 48 hours were pure chaos. Belinda was livid and desperate. She called an emergency HOA meeting, locked the doors, and started rallying her remaining allies. Her goal was clear: regain control, challenge my ownership, and paint me as a threat to the entire community. By the next morning, the retaliation had begun. I received 6 new violation notices on my doorstep. One for unapproved lawn decor, a garden stone with my daughter's name on it, one for faded trim paint which had been approved during our move-in, and another for excessive tree shade. Excessive shade. She was throwing everything at me, and it did not stop there. Rumors began to spread that I was bankrupt, that I was planning to drain the lake, that I was an outsider trying to destroy property values. Even my daughter Lily started hearing whispers at school. A girl told her, "My mom says you're the reason our HOA fees are going up." Lily came home crying. That night I sat by her bed watching her sleep, and I promised myself something. Belinda Cross would never hurt my family again. So I struck back, but not with fines, not with rumors, with truth. I released everything. Through our growing Glade Guardians network, I sent out a digital report, complete with documents, timelines, and audio recordings. HOA funds used for personal landscaping at Belinda's home. Fines selectively enforced against residents of color. Fake maintenance invoices paid to companies Belinda secretly owned, and the cherry on top, an audio recording provided by Henry of Belinda offering to make violations disappear in exchange for real estate deals. The community was stunned. Neighbors who once supported her went silent. Some started knocking on my door, quietly saying things like, "We had no idea. We thought she was strict, not corrupt. Thank you." Meanwhile, I hosted a community Q&A by the lake, now legally named Rachel's Lake in honor of my late wife. I told them everything, and I showed them what we were building. A space. For kids. Fishing. Peace. Equity. No politics. No power games. Just a lake that finally belonged to all of us. By the end of the night, 12 more families had joined our coalition. And the once untouchable Belinda? She was starting to unravel, but I was not done yet. By now, Belinda was fighting ghosts. The HOA board was crumbling. 3 members had resigned. The community was asking questions she could no longer answer. And then came the final move. See, while Belinda was issuing fines, I was buying mortgages, quietly, legally. Through connections I built in my finance days, I had purchased the debt on nearly 20% of the homes in Lakeshore Glade, including hers. The look on her face when that letter arrived, I will never forget. She stormed into the next HOA meeting, red-faced, waving the notice like a flag. "This is harassment," she screamed. "He's weaponizing money." I stayed calm. "No," I said. "I am stabilizing a community you nearly destroyed." The room was silent, and then one voice spoke up. It was Sapphira Duskland, the once timid board member Belinda had mocked in public months earlier. "He did more for this neighborhood in 3 weeks than you did in 3 years. That was the breaking point. More residents began coming forward with stories of Belinda's cruelty. A woman who was fined for leaving her trash bin out because her son was in the hospital. A man forced to repaint his home 3 times because it was too blue. A single dad whose daughter was banned from the pool for laughing too loudly. It all unraveled. She tried to fight back, tried to threaten legal action. The lawsuits were weak. The evidence against her was solid. And worst of all, no one believed her anymore. She resigned in disgrace 2 days later, citing emotional stress and personal attacks. The same week, I announced a refinance program. Lower interest rates for every homeowner who wanted out from under the banks. Except one. Belinda's loan, I told the bank, is being called in. She put her home on the market a week later. No. Buyers came. No sympathy followed. She had ruled with fear. But fear does not last. Not when truth finally finds its voice. And we were just getting started. It has been 1 year since that day by the dock, the day my daughter cried not because she was hurting, but because she was healing. Since then, Lakeshore Glade has changed. Not because of me, but because the people, who were once afraid to speak, finally did. Belinda's name is now a whisper of the past. Her real estate license was suspended after the HOA audit revealed years of self-dealing, selective enforcement, and misappropriated funds. Her house? Still unsold. Her power? Gone. And Rachel's Lake? It now belongs to a community trust, with open access, 0 HOA control, and a new rule book written by the people. We have Saturday fishing lessons for kids, a floating garden that filters runoff and keeps the lake clean, and a bench by the dock with a plaque that simply says, "For Rachel, for peace, for every child who needs one more day." Lily helped me design it. She also runs the Junior Conservation Club now, 12 kids strong. They learn about water ecosystems, fishing ethics, and how to stand up when something is wrong, even if you are the smallest one in the room. I was asked to run for mayor this year. I declined. I do not need a title to make change. I just needed a reason, and grief gave me one. Because the truth is, this story was never about a lake, or a fine, or even revenge. It was about remembering that rules mean nothing when they come at the cost of kindness, and that real leadership is not about control. It is about protecting the quiet places where healing happens. So if you are watching this, stuck in your own HOA nightmare, remember this. You are not powerless. You are patient. And one patient person with a purpose can turn an entire system upside down.